Hello Jackal! In this video, I'll show you how to make this sci-fi like text effect in DaVinci Resolve and also how to make it into a template. But the template won't just have this effect. With a push of a button, you'll be able to change the effect from horizontal to vertical. Now let's get digital. So to make the effect, we have to make a fusion composition, go to the media pool, right click, make a new fusion composition. You can give it a name if you want, and change the duration. I'll just leave it to 5 seconds, which is the default. Take the fusion composition, put it onto a timeline, put the playhead over it, select it, and go into the fusion page. Now we have the media out. To make the effect, we need the text node. I'll put it right here. I'll type something in. Now this is just a template. Now to start off, I'll just make a simple animation. I'll go to the shadings tab, and in here I'll be animating the opacity. First, let me connect it to the media out so we can see it. So we'll be fading from 0 to 1. So we can do this on frame 0, keyframe the value, and put this to 1. And then decide how fast this should move in. Maybe on frame 10, this will be visible, just like that. So we have the starting animation, and then we'll do the switching. In my case, the project timeline has 30 frames per second, so I'll be basing it on that. Now, if I want to have two switches, I'll basically make it around 50 and 100 frames. And then this will fade out. So I can actually do the fade out animation right now. Just like that. So we have the in and out animation. And now we have to do the in between. Now how I've done it is in the transform I've animated the X rotation, but as you can see it rotates from this point. I want to rotate it from the middle point, and you'll have to adjust the pivot point to achieve that. The easiest way to do that is to go almost to 90 degrees and position this into the center of this point. So something like this. Now I will make the animation at frame, let's say 46. Put this back to 0, keyframe the value. At frame 49, you will now have to decide in which direction you want the animation to go. I'll go in this way, so minus 90. And to make the animation a little bit more interesting, what I've also animated was the size in the Y value. So at the start this will be 1, and when it finishes this will be 5. Well, it's a little bit too fast, so maybe the value should be 3. Then I'll leave 1 frame in between. So go 2 frames forwards, keyframe the values again, and then we'll show the text back again. So this will also be in 3 frames. Position this back to 1, and this will go back to 0. Now you could put minus 180 here, but in that case you'll have the letters upside down. So let's see how that looks like. The only thing that we need is to change the text. So for now, I'll go to a text node where we hide it. I'll keyframe the value. And here in the middle, where we don't have any keyframes, I'll change the text. So now we have this animation done. Luckily, we don't have to do it manually again. We can go to the keyframes with the text node selected and have show only selected tools. And click on zoom to fit so we see the keyframes. Now we'll simply copy the keyframes. We can't copy all of them. We can just copy them one line at a time, as you can see. And even then, we didn't copy the ones that we need. So I'll simply select them like so. And I'll also have to adjust this position, so these 2 keyframes are in line with these keyframes. And also let me position this in the middle of frame 100. Now let's move these two keyframes over. To zoom in on the keyframes, hold Ctrl and use the middle mouse wheel. And we need to line these keyframes up. So select them and move them. And now all that we have to do is go to this keyframe. Now this one will say intro, that's okay. It won't be visible, we have to change this one. And now the animation should be done, at least the base one. So this is done. Now we can spice this up a little bit. So to do that, I've used a blur node. And why a blur node? Because you can unlock the X and Y values. And this will make it so it blurs either in the X or in the Y direction. So this time I'll just use this value. Also what I'll add is a soft glow node. This makes it so we can adjust the glow size in the X and Y direction. And lastly, I'll use just a glow node. Now in the glow node, we can adjust how intense this will be and also change the color scale. Of course, if we don't see the text, it doesn't make much sense. You may want to increase this X or the Y glow value to 200, so you get a better line. And to have a sharp line, just decrease the Y or the X glow value to 0. And now finally, you can adjust the glow values to what you want. So let's see how that looks like. And also we have to animate the blur. So we have to animate this. So I'll go to the start, animate it, and go to frame 11. You can also go to frame 10. I'll have to do this in the opposite direction, so this will be 0, and this will be 100. And we can do the same at the end, so it also fades out. I'll move this keyframe to frame 10. So now we have the horizontal effect. Let's make the vertical one. I'll just copy these nodes below. So what do we have to change? Let's take a look. First I'll do this blur. So we have the X blur size keyframed. So I'll simply use these keyframes and adjust the values. So at the beginning, this will be 100. Unkeyframe it. Keyframe this one. And set the value to 100. Now let me put this one on the left side. So now we have the blur going from top to bottom. Now we have to adjust this soft glow. I'll simply switch the values. 200. Now we could also decrease this and also adjust the blend if that is something that you want. So we have that. The text animation will stay the same, at least at the moment. And actually, this is the animation that I wanted to do for the vertical one, so I have to fix the one that I did in the horizontal. So what I have to change is not animate rotation. So I'll remove the rotation and also I'll get rid of the size. So now we don't have any animation, we just have the text change. So we need to fix that. Now what I've done previously in the intro is basically adjust the spacing. So that's what I'll do. And just move it inside, in this case something like so. Keyframe this value again and then simply extend this back to 1. And now we can simply go to the keyframes again go to the character spacing, select the keyframes, paste them, and move them over, and let's see, so they have to be on top of these two keyframes. So now we have the horizontal animation done, and we also have the vertical animation done. Now, if you want to use this as a template and only have one template, the easiest way to do that is to use a dissolve node, connect it just like so. Now I can connect the glow node at the end because it doesn't use anything special, and it's the same for both effects. So if you want to use any kind of effect that is not animated and can apply to both effects, simply put it at the end. And what we'll do in the dissolve node is simply adjust this value from 0 to 1. And we'll do that instantly so you don't have something like this, unless that is also something that you would want. Let's maybe see how this actually looks like if I use 0.5. It also looks okay, but that's not what I want. Now how can we do this automatically? I'll use a checkbox. We could use any kind of control. We could also use these ones. But to keep it simple, I'll make a new control, right click on the dissolve node, edit controls. This will go to the controls tab. This is the controls tab, so we have it right here. We can also animate it if you want, not needed though. Give it a name, horizontal/vertical, and this will be a checkbox. So we have this control. Currently it doesn't do anything, but that's what we'll do with this. So we can simply type in equals to make an expression and connect the plus to this value. So now this will be either 0 or 1. So this is what we'll do when we export the template, so the user can simply click on this checkbox to switch between these two templates. Now the one thing that I didn't do yet is the text. Currently this is a fixed text, and we don't want the user to be messing with the animations, because they would be actually changing this text. How can we fix that? Well, we'll simply make 3 new text nodes. Now these text nodes don't have to be connected, they will be just placeholders. First line, second line, let's say last line. And what we have to do now is to link the values of these text nodes to this one and to this one. We'll do that with an expression, and I have it right here, but I'll have to change it a little bit. Well, I have text 2, text 3, and text 4, so I don't have to change that. So basically, we have text 2, dot stylized text, which is this field. So anything that will be in this field will be pasted or obtained in the text 1 node. Now the time is the current frame, and this is where the text changes. So in this example, the text changes at this point. If time is less than 50, because this is where the text changes, so if time is less than 50, we'll see the first text, which will be this first line. Otherwise, we'll see the second line. So this will be 50. And for the second line, the text changes on frame 101. So now we basically have, if the current time is less than 50, show the first line. If the time is less than 101, show the second line. Otherwise, show the last line. So now I'll simply copy this and make an expression out of this one. So right click, make an expression, and replace this text, and do the same with the bottom one. First line, second line, and last line. And if I go to the dissolve and enable the vertical animation, we have the first line, second line, and the last line. Now you can always adjust the glows, and I suggest you do so. Now when it comes to the text, what you have to know is that the font won't be used from these nodes, only the capital or lowercase letters will. But this will depend on the font that you actually use in text 1 and text 1-1. So in this case, if I change the font, as you can see, it changes. But if I change it from, so this is last line, if I change it here, you can see that it doesn't have any effect. And also when you do change the font, make sure that you go over this animation that flips. So this one that flips, if I zoom in, as you can see, now it's not in the center, so you have to adjust the pivot point. But that is only if you just want to be really nitpicky. Now all that you have to do is to make this into a template. So let's select all of the nodes that make the composition. Right click, make a macro. I'll just simply do this quick. So what you want is text 1 and text 1. Now is this the best way to make this into a template? Probably not, because when it comes to these two text nodes, you'll have to select the stylized text, font, and color if you want to be able to change the actual font. So in that case, what you would do is make the animation in text 1, copy the node, right click, and then paste an instance of it. And then you would just have to de-instance all of the other properties that you've animated in the text 1. So you would have to de-instance the spacing, and you would also have to de-instance the X rotation, because that is what this node uses to animate. But because I've done it as I've done it, I'll simply do it like this. So you want to be able to change the stylized text. You don't really want to change the stylized text, but you do want to change the font, and you have to enable it if you want to change the fonts. I'll do the same for text 1 as soon as I find it. Now in the text 1 node, which has the vertical animation, you also want to be able to change the pivot point in the y direction. So I will also enable that. It's under the transform, and we should have the pivot, which is this. Why is it the character pivot? Because that is what I'm using. In the soft glows, you could do something if you wanted to. I'll just enable the glow so you can adjust the color scale. So you have red, green, blue, and the alpha scale. And lastly, and maybe most importantly, we have the text. So we have text 2, text 3, and text 4. We need to enable the stylized text. We don't need anything else. We just need to be able to change the text. Same with this one and with this one. Now the only thing that I don't like is that text 2, 3, and 4 are red. So I will uncheck the output. I don't want the output from these nodes. The output should only be from the glow node, which is the last one in the composition, so this one will be connected to the media out. Now let's save this as a group. Go to Fusion, Templates, Edit, and this can be, well, it can be a title. Call it Sci-fi Text. Save it. You don't actually have to close it. If you make any mistakes, we could then maybe simply check the outputs again. So I didn't check the stylized text in text 4, so let me save this again. For some reason, it's getting unchecked. So I'll simply go into the edit page and see if this actually works. Sci-fi text. It shows. Go to the inspector. What do we have? We have first line, second line, and last line, which I guess is okay, but none of the other options that I've enabled were enabled in the last save. So I'll have to redo that. And also I don't have the checkbox, so that's also something that I have to do. And that was actually in the dissolve. I haven't enabled it. So I can enable this option. This is the most important one. Then you have the text 1. Then we have text 1. I have to enable the text again, so stylized text. And in the glow, I said I will enable the red, green, blue, and alpha scale. And also in text 1, I wanted to enable the character pivot. Let me save it again. Now this one will stay the same. because it was already on the timeline, but this one is new and should be different, and it is. So this is either a text 1 or the text 1.1. In this case, we just want to be able to change the fonts and the color. Don't touch the expression. We have the horizontal and vertical, and then we have the 3 lines that we can simply change. So the top one is actually the vertical one, as you can see. So we can change the color, maybe to a bluish one. So something like that. Now obviously it would be a lot better to just have one stylized text to change the font, the color, the size, and maybe anything else that you would want. Because in this case we have 2 options. One is for the horizontal and one is for the vertical one. Maybe it would also be nice to have some adjustments in the glow section besides the scale. So also the glow size, the blur, and so on, and anything else that you would see fit. Now you can simply put this on top of a clip. So I have some backgrounds. So as you can see, the background of the text is transparent, so you can simply put this onto a clip. I'm Simon, and until next time, jackals, keep it digital.